Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome back to the show. I hope you had great holidays. And before we start with this podcast, the first podcast of 2025, I would like to invite everybody, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, this is episode 205, meaning there are 204 more episodes. So you're welcome to subscribe on your favorite platform. Productivity Master is the name of the podcast. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other major platforms. And we are kicking off the year with a really strong start. I'm very excited to welcome our first guest for 2025. My guest, Mike Champion, is the CEO of Tahaluf. He's leading a team of more than 200 or 300 people. He'll let me know in just a second, organizing iconic events such as Leap, Black Hat Mir, Cityscape Global, CPHI Middle East, DeepFest AI, and many, many more in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He's been just a major force in the region. The company has won multiple awards for their work, for their exceptional work. Just to give you an idea, Leap, that's happening next month, is going to attract more than 200,000 people in Riyadh. And there's many more events to come that Mike is going to share about. Mike, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Stoyan. Are you telling me that there were 204 people that you decided to have on your podcast before you invited me?
You know what? I want to keep the best one. I want to build some momentum, Mike.
That's all right. No, I'm just very happy to be invited at all. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
And I want to invite the audience, everybody who's watching us live on LinkedIn. If you are with us right now, please make sure to post in the comments, where are you watching us from? Where did you decide to join with your cup of coffee to listen to me and Mike? Thank you so much. And Mike, let's start with your journey. What a journey. Can you maybe share a little bit about your journey of becoming the CEO of Tahaluf?
Well, it started really just around when COVID started, which is a disaster for people in the events trade, of course, globally. But fortunately, just before COVID impacted the industry, I and a couple of colleagues, we started our we started in earnest trying to expand the business as Informa employees. And Informa is a major exhibitions company. It's the leading one in the world, and we were working for that company. And we looked at the Saudi market and thought that Saudi really had the great opportunity of growing its events sector, particularly because His Royal Highness the Crown Prince had made a commitment in the Vision 2030 that he would diversify the economy. And we got to learn that most ministries had been advised that they should start to either attract or build their own iconic events. And having come from a tech event background myself, we saw, a real space in that market in Saudi, and thought, let's launch a cybersecurity event, and let's also launch a general technology event. Now, we spoke with a few partners of ours who later become sort of official partners, but they were sort of governmental entities, and they invited us to bid, to pitch for what these events would look like. Of course, this was sort of our bread and butter, because we'd worked on tech events, and we were able to develop and win their confidence and trust, and sign an agreement, and then launch these two events. We launched an event called At Hack, which later became Black Hat, and we also launched an event called Leap. Now, to cut a long story short, this took about sort of 18 months before we delivered it. Now, we would have delivered it earlier had it not been for COVID, but we managed to deliver it. Both of the events were, very successful. And I remember really halfway through Leap, quite an extraordinary thing happened. One of our partners on the event, who hadn't really explained that, he was quite close with government. He didn't really ever sort of reveal his cards in this respect. He said, we'd like you to come and meet with some advisors in the royal court. And so we went, I think it was day 2 of LEAP, in the evening. And so we went and we met with an advisor, and they said to us, what you've managed to achieve with LEAP is what we've been trying to achieve with events in this country for, a while. Okay, lots of international exposure, lots of internationals attending, really high quality production, and you're not charging through the nose for it. So, we'd like to see more of that. You can continue, if you want, doing what you're doing, working as Informer, doing simple, bilateral agreements with various ministries and launching events, or we can do something more strategic, and we could all go into a sort of partnership and create something that's more sort of Saudi themed and Saudi born. And so we said, well, we'd love to do that. We'd like to work with you. And as far as we're concerned, in a growing market like Saudi, a massive market like Saudi, half the pie is worth more than the whole pie. If you're dealing with the right people. So very fortunately, we spent a year during 2022 to 23, just negotiating a joint venture, and our partnership took place. We're now Tahaluf, and half of the business is owned by Informer, and the other half of the business is owned by governmental or Saudi entities, including the Events Investment Fund, which is chaired by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, and also the Saudi Federation for Cybersecurity Programming and Drones, which has been a brilliant force for good in terms of helping us expand and navigate, as quite a few of us are foreigners, navigate how to work in Saudi. So when that business was founded, I was invited to be the CEO of that business. So that's how that worked out.
And you're organizing iconic mega events like LEAP, as I mentioned, an event that is having over 215,000 attendees, the largest tech event in the world. But that's not the only event you have. Can you give us an idea about the scale? How many events do you organize per year? How big are they? What kind of verticals and industries they are covering?
Sure. Look, Tahaluf wants to operate events or own events that focus on strategic markets, particularly for the country that we're working in. At the moment, all of our events are in Saudi Arabia. Okay, so the strategic markets and for us are the ones which are helping to really transform that economy. We're not operating in all the strategic markets. We don't operate in defense, for example, but we do operate in technology. So we have LEAP, which is, in its 3rd edition, became the most attended tech event in the world. And we have, as I mentioned earlier, Black Hat, which is the most attended cybersecurity event, and also Money 2020. This launched last year as 24 FinTech in partnership with the central bank. It automatically became a really, really solid event. We're talking, around 30,000 people attending it, but the Net Promoter Score, this is how we measure the success of the event, is a Net Promoter Score, where we're just sort of asking, the attendees, would you recommend it? Would you come back? That sort of stuff was sky high. It was 59, and 59, for anyone who doesn't know, from a Net Promoter Score is extremely good. The industry average for an established event might be something like 15 to 20 or something like this, and often it's even in the negative. So that was a brilliant launch in that respect, and that's in fintech. But we also have Cityscape Global, which has happened in its 2nd year to become the largest property event in the world, and we have 175,000 people attending that. Property, as you know, is massively important in Saudi, not just from a residential perspective, but because of the giga projects that they're doing, and the numbers around that event, Stoyan, I have to say, are just that they've completely surprised us. What was obvious to us around that Cityscape event is that the Saudi market is massive. The ambition behind it is massive. The strength and depth in terms of the financing, the commitment to massive projects is real. Just to give you a few figures, there was $60 billion of new projects announced at that event. There was something in the region of about 20 billion of residential transactions, and then I believe there was 120 billion of MOUs signed at that event. I mean, this is bigger than the GDP of many European countries, right? And this is just transacting in this sort of one moment at a time. So there's something very special happening in Saudi, particularly around its economic transformation and the grand ambitions that His Royal Highness the Crown Prince has, and and his government. So we try to align with those. We also have two really successful events in the life sciences sector. So we have a global health exhibition, which we've now scaled to be the most attended by day of any healthcare event in the world. And we also have we've also brought in an event called CPHI. A CPHI is a pharmaceutical event. If you don't work in pharmaceuticals, you might not know it, but if you do, trust me, you will. It's the largest worldwide. It's a mega brand in pharmaceuticals. We brought an edition of that over to Saudi. It's in about 18 or 19 other countries. Forgive me, it might be 20 or something like that as well. But we brought it to Saudi, and in its first edition, it became the largest debut pharma event in history. So we've got a really good track record of fulfilling the Tahaluf purpose. And Tahaluf's purpose is kind of twofold. One, we need to create a great ROI for our investors, okay? But two, we have a mission to actually be a part of helping to transform Saudi Arabia into a global events hub. And so we're contributing to that. And personally, we don't feel we can contribute to that in a meaningful sense if we do a trade show that's not particularly strategic. I'm not going to say anything at all bad about health and fitness show or a muscle show or something like that. I mean, that's a great lifestyle show, and people attend it, and they can be very profitable. But we want something that's actually going to be in the top sort of 10 categories of what the government considers to be important, and that's what we're working in. In total, next year we will deliver 18 brands. But really, the quantity of brands, it doesn't matter in events. I could, there's probably a company delivering 100 that does 5% of our revenue. So it's really about the sort of size, of the events and the impact of those events. And we measure our events by economic impact, and that's a direct economic impact. And also the sort of knock-on impact that those events have as well. So we're able to calculate that from 2022 to 2024, the events that Tahaluf have delivered have had about $2 billion of direct economic impact. That's, for example, somebody flying in, staying in a hotel, taking a taxi, buying food, staying for a few more days in the country. And then if we add the transactions, actual, like sales and things that we can calculate, because a lot more happens, then we can say we've had a minimum of $10 billion of economic impact in those couple of years. And that's what really excites, the government when we're working with them. And like a government either gets it or they don't. I've got to say the Middle East gets it really well. I've worked in Bahrain, and they really get the importance of events and the economic impact it has. Saudi Arabia definitely does, but some other countries they don't. They just leave it as hands off. But so that's another reason why we're very fortunate, really, to be working in this market, because you get the proper confidence and support of the government as well.
You say they really get it. Can you elaborate on that? What it exactly in their way of working is making you say that?
Yeah, if we bring in 100,000 people, let's say next year, it's quite possible that we will bring in 100,000 foreigners, okay, or international people flying into Riyadh. All right, many of them have never seen the city before, or they have a misapprehension of what Saudi Arabia is like. And when they go there and they arrive, more often than not, almost entirely more often than not, they're amazed. Okay, they're amazed by the hospitality, they're amazed by the business that's happening, they're amazed by the access to being able to get business and do transactions at the shows. They're amazed by the quality of the shows that we deliver compared to ones they've been to elsewhere. We're consistently, frequently told by the international guests that we have just how wrong they were about their misconceptions about what Saudi Arabia would be like, and how impressed they've been. They come back, they go back to their, to their countries of origin. They tell their friends, they tell their business colleagues, actually, the place to be at the moment for business is Saudi. And by the way, I'd go on holiday there as well, and we're consistently hearing this. So that's just a soft power aspect of it. But then there's also, the business acceleration aspect of doing events. If you look at Leap, which is happening in a matter of a few weeks' time, we're bringing trillions of dollars of assets under management in terms of investors. So we're talking, bringing in the chief investment officer, or, the head of a VC fund from, the Americas or from Europe. But we're bringing them in their hundreds, and these guys, are controlling dry powder or investment opportunity in the trillions of dollars. Okay, and that translates into real business happening in Saudi Arabia, particularly with companies that are based in Saudi or Saudi owned, which wouldn't have happened before. There was a time when foreigners would come to Saudi looking to make money from Saudi's assets, from Saudi's oil wealth, and that's what it kind of looked at. Okay. Now we're finding, and we're helping through these events to accelerate. Actually, there's a lot of exciting things happening in Saudi Arabia, particularly with its indigenous companies that are growing there, and we're getting investors coming over wanting to be a part of those projects.
It's impressive, man. The more I hear about Saudi, I keep hearing from many different people visiting the region, working in the region. We recently had another guest, actually from there, born in Saudi Arabia, talking about Vision 2030, talking about all the massive projects. So it's exciting. I'm excited to come and visit soon as well. And since we have many event producers joining today's podcast, listening to the podcast, and trying to to get some inspiration from somebody like you with so much experience in the field, I wonder, what are the key things you focus on? Imagine that there is a new event brand, you haven't done the event yet. What makes a successful event? What are the things that you and the team focus on to get right from the get-go?
Well, you're talking about a new event brand. You're talking
That's right.
about something that hasn't happened before, and therefore, the things that are important are somewhat different to something that is a repeat. So, a new event brand, the single most important factor is timing. Okay. So you get the wrong timing for your event, then you're not speaking to what the market needs. Okay. So what I mean by this is, if I run, a global international event, to give you a silly example, during Christmas, then it's not going to be an event that gets international attendance. It's only going to be an event that might get some regional attendance. Okay. And then the other aspect of timing is timing in relation to what the competitive analysis looks like. Okay. So if I launch an event which is already in a crowded market where other events in that sector are launching at the same time, that's going to stuntify the growth of that event and its impact when you launch it. And then you talked about from an event management or an event organizer perspective. Well, timing is important for them too. I mean, typically, you can't launch a really impressive event without putting in, I would say, at least 14 to 18 months, at least, of preparatory work. Now, this is a big struggle. In Saudi Arabia, you're asked all the time to deliver an event from scratch in 6 months' time. Okay, and so when you're working in those conditions, all you could really do, and what some companies do, is they spend a lot of money on the production of it, and it looks spectacular when you attend, but the telltale signs of a quality event that's had enough time to produce it are missing. Those telltale signs are things like really high quality speakers. Because if you want a really high quality speaker, high quality speakers are booked up for 12 months, aren't they? Right? They're difficult to find time for. You have to invite, if you want a C-level at a top company, to come and fly in, to come and speak with you, they're going to need a lot of time before they're actually able to accept that because their diaries are full. So sometimes they're missing those. But then that pervades as well down to the quality of the attendance. Not always the quantity. You can actually get people into an event pretty easily, but it's the quality, it's the relevance. That's what I mean. When I talk about quality, I mean about the relevance of it. So you're doing a healthcare event, you want to make sure that everyone there is actually working in healthcare, or they're quite senior in their jobs. And when you do an event very, very quickly, you get a far lower relevance. So we really try to avoid doing events in a really short amount of time. And sometimes we can't avoid it because the people that ask us they're strategic and they're important, and we want to be able to help them. But more often than not, we spend a lot of time advising people, if we're going to launch this event, it needs to launch at a specific time in the right part of the calendar as well. So that, I would say, is singularly the most important aspect of launching an event, Stoyan.
What about, you also mentioned, what about the events that already happened, like brands that has been established, for example, Leap or some of these other brands? What is important to pay attention to?
Consistency of the team. It's the people. It's being able to keep the same team on that event year after year after year, or a majority of them. I won't give you the company name. I'm sure a lot of people listening will probably know it, but I've worked in the past for companies where I've worked on a major event, and within 6 months the entire team has rotated, has changed. Like a team of 40 people that were there 6 months before, there's about 25 or 30 of them that have left the company. And when you get that happening every year, or even every half year, you have no chance of being able to continue or improve upon the quality, because you keep making the same mistakes over and over again. You fail to innovate, because innovation comes from making mistakes and learning and picking up good practice that's happened in the past and developing upon it. So by far the most important reason why we've been able to take our events and grow them so substantially from year 1 to 2 to 3. And to give you context, Leap is now the size of an event that would normally take 40 years probably to grow to, and it's in its 4th edition, right? So there's special reasons for that. I'm not saying that the team that are working on it, they've done it just because they're consistent, all right? But they definitely could not have done it had it not been the same team repeating. And so it's that is the single most important aspect of that. And my biggest advice to anybody is if you want a fast growing or successful, productive business, then you need to keep your attrition down. You need to be losing staff at less than 5% if you can, because anything above that becomes a bit more problematic. And certainly if you're losing it to any more than 20%, then you're just going to lose your ability to get quality.
I travel to many events. I speak at a lot of events, and I guess one of the reasons that they cannot keep their teams consistently is, of course, the funding, the finance. If we put this factor aside, because of course that's a major thing that event producers need to cover and struggle with a lot. But if we put this factor aside just for a moment, the funding, the financing, what else do you think event producers can do so they can keep their people consistently?
All right. Well, first and foremost, you've got to have successful events. Okay. So if you're working in an industry, if your event is operating in a market which is not a vibrant market, is in decline, then you've got to diversify out of that. Okay, and that's why we're seeing so many events companies moving now, trying to move into the Saudi market, because they see it as being a fast-moving and exciting market. If you don't have an exciting event portfolio, if you don't have an exciting product, then you've lost half of the battle. First and foremost, because people don't feel a sense of purpose working for you. Okay. And then secondly, you're unable to do the sort of trappings around an event that is very successful. And events that are successful, that are working in a successful market, allow events professionals to be extremely creative. Because I'm able to say to my team, for example, work with the best stage producers in the world, create something that's phenomenal. Okay. Work with the guys that did the Rolling Stones concert or Beyonce's last concert. Okay. Get something that's out of this world. Pick the team from, wherever, and let's develop it in that way. Trust me, the conversation at another company that is not focused or doesn't have a successful product or a series of successful products is saying, get me the cheapest stage you can get. Okay. In fact, cut it because we can't afford to run it. Okay. Now, when you're working in that environment, or even if it's just cut it because we want to make even more profit, that's very often the case, by the way. It's not a case that an event isn't very viable. It's just that there's, a mean chairman or CEO somewhere who's going, I want to make 60% rather than 50. Okay. And when that happens, it trickles down, and then you end up with the people that work for you being told they've got to, cut the quality of what they've been working on for the last 6 months. That's when you start to get people leaving the company, because they start to feel ashamed about the product that they're delivering. They start to feel a little bit embarrassed with, the speakers that come along. They start to feel a bit embarrassed, to talk to them, because it wasn't really what they expected or what they wanted to deliver. So we've been very, very clear from the very beginning that, unlike many other events companies, Tahaluf will be content first. It will be product first, content and product. Okay. The content, we will not skimp on having the best speakers or the right speakers. And when we have the best speakers and the right speakers, we will treat them as they should be treated. That means they're getting a business class flight because they're a guest of a major Saudi event. They're not going to make them pay for their flight up front, economy class. We're not going to, reimburse them after they've arrived. We'll pay it up front, the flight that they want to take. When they arrive at the airport, we meet them at the airport. We drive them to the, to the hotel, so they're not stood around the airport with their hands in their pockets worrying what to do. They're treated properly. They're taken to the airport and they're given a good hotel room in a good, so they're taken to the hotel, they're given a good hotel room, with a good branded hotel, and they're treated well, and they're given a concierge service, because that's really how they should be treated. And what we've found, how that impacts, for example, the people that work in speaker acquisition for us, is that people who work in speaker acquisition for us are looked at really favorably now by the industry. If they're bringing in a big speaker, that big speaker's leaving going, thank you. That was a brilliant experience. I loved it. And they're going home and they're talking about how great it is. And then they're keeping in touch with us, with our colleagues, with our staff members who work to bring them in. And so they feel a sense of purpose, a sense of, actually that they're contributing to something well, because they can actually, spend what's right on them. So what I'm trying to say in that aspect is, it's really important to ensure that brand isn't disrupted or degraded by an excessive pursuit of profit, okay, or an excessive pursuit of cost reduction or something like this. Because if you follow that brand, and Tahaluf's brand is, we deliver mega events, but we also deliver higher quality events than our competitors. We treat our speakers well, and we have more speakers than everybody else, and we have better speakers. That's our brand. Okay, so we won't skimp on that. And people working to deliver that, because we don't skimp on it, they feel a sense of purpose.
First of all, as a speaker, I gotta say that the experience that you provide to the speaker is so important. Totally agree. Yeah. I've been to many conferences that is just, get a cup from the airport, you just go around, you don't know where it is, you go to the hotel, nobody meets you. There's nobody to welcome you at the venue. Like, you have to go to the venue yourself, and they'll reimburse you or whatever. And then you go there and you're kind of lost. And you go on the stage, and of course you do your best to be there, to be present, to deliver. But it's completely different when you get greeted, when there's a little note in your hotel room saying thank you for being here, when there's a person designated to you to comment to, hey, call me if anything. They welcome you, they meet you, they take care of you. You need something, simple stuff. They even anticipate, right? Hey, would you like some coffee? Hey, I can see that you just came now. Can I take care of your jacket? Like, simple stuff. And you're like, you know what? I'm gonna give my best to these people, man. And when I go home, I'll talk about this event to everybody. So I
That's a
get it.
that's a happy byproduct. We're not master manipulators with a cynicism where we're going to treat them like this because we'll get that end result. Okay, it is a happy byproduct, but like I say, we do it because it's just how you should behave, right? It's literally how you should behave. It's embarrassing to bring someone over to a country and just leave them by themselves at an airport, and to let them fend for themselves, and then to make them pay for their flight and reimburse it, and then 5 weeks or 6 weeks later they ask you, hey, I've not received the money yet. And I've seen this happen lots of times at other events companies that I've worked at, or friends of mine and colleagues have worked at, which just shouldn't be like that, right? So yeah, that's all part of the plan, regarding this. Put the customer first, put the end user first, put the product first. The profits will follow. Okay.
Mm. How do you spread these principles and values across the different teams and brands? Because I mean, you have this one company that is believing in these things, but you got to put up new events, new brands. Do you have any kind of I don't know, like a list of principles and values we believe in? That's what we do. And like, how do you make sure that with the growth of the team, you manage to sustain this culture and these principles?
Like managing events, organizing events is hard, right? It's really stressful, and I don't know any really successful or quality person. I don't know very many in the events trade who don't lie awake most of the night, or sort of, or wake up extremely early in the morning, dreading what emails are in their inbox, or what WhatsApps, what appalling WhatsApps they've received today, that sort of thing overnight. So this happens, and in that environment, right, employing the right people from an attitude perspective is just so important, right? Our HR department, our community departments, our talent acquisition department, there's one kind of rule. I don't mind people knowing this. Perhaps I shouldn't say it, but because it gives away a secret. But we need to. I'm going to mention it anyway because I think it's a really important rule. It's really benefited us. For every employee that we've ever hired that we don't know, okay, so we haven't worked with them before. So we can't vouch for them in that respect. They have to display in the interview process, some element of empathy or kindness in particular. Okay, through them telling a story, doing something that's hypothetical. I'll give you an example of this. We might push somebody going into a management role and ask them the question, you've got a new employee, they've been with you for a month, and they've taken a couple of days off because their family member is ill, their father's ill, or their mother's ill, let's say. You've agreed, and that's okay. They want to take off another couple of days. What do you say? Right? And then we say they want to take off another couple of days. And we see at what point do they say, I wouldn't let them, I make them come into work because they're taking the piss, or something like this, right? At which point, we actually really don't want to have that attitude at all, in any sense. The way that we see it is, family is really important, okay, for people. It's much more important than work, right? And so we want a position where if something like that happens, that actually we're not going to be, extreme on making people come back to the office or anything like this. People grieve in different ways, and people, deal with suffering in different ways. And 5 days off is not going to be enough for everybody. It might be too much for others. And so we have a highly trusting and what I would say kindly management team that report to me. They're all fully sort of versed into that sort of approach, because we spend so much time at work, and it can be so oppressive in terms of the demands. You've got to feel like you're walking into a place that it feels a bit like home. It feels like it's a safe environment, and that everything's all right. And so that's been a major, cultural thing, which has helped actually all those different teams that are working on those different events work with trust with each other. I think they all know that actually all the senior management team, they've got their backs. Okay, they want to make sure. I personally, I lie awake for the first several months of the year until I know that everyone's going to get paid and their bonuses, and they're going to get good bonuses. Until that happens, I don't feel. I feel quite agitated, right? And I know that's the same for people that are reporting into me as well.
So kindness and empathy are very important for you guys. I wonder what other characteristics that you look for when it comes to maybe performance. Like, what are some other characteristics you look for when you're about to hire a new person?
Look, when you're growing a business as fast, for the events trade, Tahaluf has grown very quickly. Okay, a couple of years ago we had a handful of people, and now at the end of this year we're going to have maybe 330, 340 people. The revenue of the business now, a couple of years ago the revenue was only $2 million. Okay, the revenue of the business now puts us as a top 20 global exhibition organizer. Okay, so you're talking 9 figures dollars revenue. And so that's a substantial year-on-year increase. And when you're growing at that pace, and I would actually say the only way you can grow at that pace is by having people that you can trust. Okay, and if you were to look at some of the top 2 or 3 layers of the hierarchical structure of the business, if you could put it that way, there's a lot of people that all of the senior management team have worked with in the past. I would say that in the last 15 years, of the 20 most quality people I've worked with, that I've actually been in the office with and gone, wow, she's bloody brilliant. She's amazing, right? About 17 of them now work at Tahaluf. So if you've worked with those people before and you know that they're brilliant, you just know that immediately you don't need to worry about what they're doing, because you know that they're kind, that they're good people, they won't be unfair, they've got the backs of their team and they want their team to thrive and do well, that they'll put in the hours. Okay, they won't slack, and that they've got a bit of intelligence about them, and they're ambitious and they're broadly aligned with you. When you've got that, you don't have to worry about about really what they're doing in their business. They can come to you with the problems and you can solve their problems with them, but you don't need to be looking over their shoulder thinking, what's going on with with this or that, or anything like this. So the ability to then, it then becomes, okay, I'm going to start focusing on a new part of the business and growing that, because that is all sorted. So Leap, Black Hat, Money 2020, okay, these events, that's run by Annabelle Manda and her team. Okay, she's executive vice president of Tahaluf, and she was there from day one. She was there from day one with me. Okay, growing that business. So really, that business runs itself. And frankly, if Annabelle ever comes to me and says, I need to speak to you about something for 5 minutes, it's normally something really bad. Okay, right? Or so it's not a, that's a great relief. And it doesn't mean that I'm now putting my feet up thinking, I don't have to worry about the business. It then means I can start to grow other divisions or portfolios. So, we've got Rachel Sturgis, who's a senior vice president as well. She's running Cityscape. She's running Global Health Exhibition. That's a massive, that's a massive portfolio in terms of the, the size, the impact of those events. And over the past year, I probably spent a bit more time with her because she's been growing a team, incredibly quickly. She's employed probably, I'd say 75% of her team, in that amount of time. So that's that's been, it's been a luxury to be able to work with, to be able to spend a bit more time on challenges that probably both of us haven't actually faced in the past, and to be able to leave some other parts of the business, to run automatically by themselves. Okay, and then the same with Mohamed El Majoub. He was there at the start of the business too. Somebody else, just like Rachel, who I've worked with for 12 odd years. So he's somebody else that I can, completely leave, his part of the business to work by itself without worrying that the culture or the direction or the vision or the quality of the events will change. I know with all three of those portfolio leaders who run all of those events, I could take a year off, walk in, and the event would still be pretty much aligned with exactly how I would want it to look as well, because we're all singing off the same page. Okay. And so when you're growing a company very quickly, it's highly important to have people that you trust. And that's why you probably get quite a few companies that do really well when they're a family business. They grow quite quickly, right? Because, you trust your wife, or you trust your husband, or you trust your brothers, or you trust your father or whatever. Okay. When, not to get things terribly wrong, or at least to be very transparent with you when things are going, badly. Okay. So yeah, that's my sort of advice on that. It's employ the people who are quality and you can trust, so that you don't have to concentrate on very much else in order to get those bits right.
Amazing. I just want to remind everybody who's listening to the podcast live, feel free to post your question in the comments. If you have a question to Mike, we'll take a few questions in just a bit. Mike, what I'm always curious to ask, I've been interviewing hundreds of very successful leaders, CEOs, but I'm always interested, how does a typical week of yours look like? I know now you're not home, you guys are away, but like a typical week, how do you decide what to focus on with so many things you can potentially focus on? How do you plan and prioritize your week, and how does your week look like?
I don't know. I mean, there's no answer to that. I think if anybody says, this is how I prioritize my week, it's, every morning I have this committee meeting. I do one-to-ones on Tuesdays, and on Wednesdays I have thinking time, or I read a book or something like that. That's probably the mind of somebody who's very structured, and it's probably the mind of somebody who operates in a market or in a mature company that allows that to sort of happen. Every week of mine is completely different. A lot of the work that I do is reactive. And every management book will tell you that you shouldn't be a reactive manager. But as far as I can see it, my role is best placed in dealing with the biggest problems, the biggest fires, okay, the biggest issues, because I've got the decision-making authority to be able to solve those a lot quicker, and I probably have the broadest view over what's happening across the whole business, that others that might come to me with these issues and problems won't have. Okay, and also I'm empowered by the board to be able to make some of those decisions that can solve those problems. So I find myself not this sort of strategic visionary leader as such, that isn't what happens at Tahaluf. Okay, what happens is, I go into work thinking I'm going to do X, Y, or Z, and then someone knocks on the door and says we've got a crisis, and I spend the next 2 days dealing with that, right? Or we get called up and said, look, we've got a great business opportunity for you. So then I spend the next few days going, okay, we need to get a team together. Let's empower it. Let's give it some money. Let's give it a budget. Let's create some pitch decks around this, and then go and pursue this opportunity. So I could tell you in general what it is. In general, I care about product a lot. If I see that there's a degrading in the quality of something, then I might want to ask questions about that. Obviously I care about what the financial predictions of the business are. I keep track of that all the time. I'm looking at pipelines and looking at what the forecast of the business is on a regular basis. This is just what you do, in senior management. It's not what anybody else would not do. I care a lot about the happiness of people in the business, and that everyone's all right. I feel a sense of responsibility for the people that work with us. But I think probably, there's a sense of safeguarding the business as well. The larger you get and the bigger the brand names you have, the more you get vested interests or people with vested interests, trying to, change the brand or get involved in the brand or make decisions on the brand or the product. And that happens a lot in Saudi Arabia, and sometimes when you might get a very well-meaning government partner or a very well-meaning sponsor who will really try and force the event down one route. As event professionals, we've seen that that's a bad idea potentially, and it's for us to, we've seen this happen countless times in other markets or in other events, that you shouldn't potentially do X, Y, or Z on an event. Okay, but I often find myself quite a lot of the time also trying to protect, some elements of the business from that happening too, because success breeds success, right? And everybody wants to also, success has many fathers. Okay, as soon as you're successful, then everybody wants to be a part of the, of the journey, and more often than not, they have been a part of the journey for a long time. But you get a lot more stakeholders getting involved, and so I find myself trying to defend the business from that, and to ensure that we have the right stakeholders, participating in the event rather than the wrong ones.
Yeah, but that's what fascinates me. Now we have this conversation. I've seen a bunch of interviews, videos that you're posting on LinkedIn. You always have this vibe of a very calm guy. And if I'm in your shoes, I'll be like, oh my God, there's so much stuff happening. I'm responsible for so many things. Like, how do you manage to keep this cool?
I get frustrated sometimes, and I do, like once a year, I kind of explode, right? But and then I have to spend the next few days sort of apologizing to everybody, saying I'm very sorry for for the way I spoke to you yesterday. So look, I mean, I'm human, right? So I can lose my temper, but I'm not one of these people that loses their temper all the time, and more often than not, it's because what gets me most angry or animated, if you could say that, is if something unjust is happening. If there's if somebody's worked really bloody hard, they deserve everything they've got, and if I'm being told that actually they're not going to, we shouldn't give them a promotion because we want to make we want to save some money for the next 6 months or something like this, right? That would get me angry. That's a hypothetical situation, by the way, but that would get me really angry because actually, I vehemently believe that you pay your dues. Okay, particularly if you're in business, and people are sacrificing their time to work for you and work with you. So those things, that sense of making sure that we have a fair, not just kind, but a fair and just business is really important for me. I get and I feel that people that work with Tahaluf understand that that's the case as well. Yeah, I don't think anybody there would feel that we would do anything that was unfair, and I think that's just a generally good way to be in life. So yeah, so I think I'd have to say probably in the respect of the senior management team that work with us, that's another commonality amongst all of them. They're all always fighting for their staff, for their teams, which is great. That's what you want.
When it comes to your personal productivity, do you have any specific sort of like habits or routines, something that it's your thing, you got to do it in order to stay sharp?
No. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to sort of watch these productivity courses, and they're going to look for a a golden rule, like have a coffee every morning at 8 o'clock, go for a run for 30 minutes or something like that. It really clears your mind and you feel energetic. It doesn't. I just feel knackered if I have a run in the morning, and if I have a coffee or had too much of it, I'm too hyper and that sort of stuff too. So for me, I can't give advice on how to train yourself or how to improve yourself on it, but I can give the best advice in terms of, from a general company perspective, from dealing with a large group of people. So nobody wants to be told what to do, and the more you get told what to do, you like to be shown what to do, but to be told what to do, no one likes that, especially when they're intelligent and especially when they're creative. So what you need to do is you need to create a situation where everybody's empowered to make their own decisions. Everyone's enfranchised. So the people that report into me are probably the most empowered people in the events trade. My portfolio, the people that my executive vice presidents and my senior vice presidents, and the people that run the events portfolios, they have the decisions to make, to make the employees to reshape their org structure, to veer out of the org structure if they need to do that, to invest extra above budgets, in some of their events because it's important to them. When you give people that amount of freedom, it becomes their business. It becomes something in their shape. That shows, it doesn't just show that you trust them and they want to repay that faith. It gives them the ability to create something in their own mold, right? And when you give people that ability, then that automatically provides a situation in which they become more productive because they like it, right? I mean, if they like working and they know that what they do is on them, it's their reputation that's at stake. It's them that gets the credit or gets the discredit if it goes wrong. So that's my advice in terms of productivity is not, let's do a weekly social on a Thursday afternoon, or let's try and make everyone healthier by banning smoking or something like this, right, in the workplace, or something like this. These tactical measures, they're not important. What's important is that people come to work with a sense of purpose. Okay, and if they come to work with a sense of purpose, then they feel that they've got a reason for working or a reason for living, actually, because work is so much of your work, right? And you don't feel like you've got a sense of purpose unless you have, particularly in the events trade, unless your vision becomes reality, unless you're the person that makes those decisions, right? So I tend to only get involved in things, if I feel that someone's made a really bad mistake or it's going wrong, or I just don't really sort of understand it. And you'll find when you give people that amount of freedom and they're working on an event that is extremely powerful, then they'll become super productive. Now, I often get told, some people are working all night, at Tahaluf. I'm not there standing over them saying, work all night. And by the way, we're employing lots of people as well. Okay, it's not like we're completely understaffed. We have been understaffed in the past because we've grown faster than we've been able to employ. But we're in a position where some of the events are absolutely fine in terms of the colleagues and the staffing that's there, the numbers that are there, but people are still putting in loads of extra work. And I think that's because there's that sense of purpose. They're perfectionists. They know that what they can do on that event is a manifestation of the work that they put in, and what their creativity is.
And what about where are you getting inspiration from? My background is movie production, and a few years ago there was a book called The Curious Mind by a Hollywood producer, Brian Glazer, where he talks about the secret to his success was his grandmother, when he was little, told him about this practice. You got to be curious about people. You got to meet exceptional people and see what they do and try to apply it in your industry. So he went out and started meeting, surgeons, doctors, artists, a lot of people from different industries, but brilliant at what they do. And then he'll take a lot of these ideas and incorporate them in the processes the movies that he makes. And I think he's got more than 70 Oscar uh, nominee movies. So I wonder, what is your approach? Do you look for inspiration in other events that you admire, or do you look for inspiration outside of the event industry?
Uh, it's a really difficult question to answer. Where does inspiration come from, or where's your muse? Because if you knew, you'd do it all the time, right? You'd be like, every time I go to, this seminar, I come back with amazing answers all the time, right? And so you'd be paying to go there all the time, okay, for your amazing ideas. So I think it's a case of habit, and also, habit in terms of mixing in the right sorts of environments that can create, inspiration or innovation. So I find the people that I work with at work highly inspiring people. Okay, they report into me, but frankly, I would work for any of those guys. Okay, and I think that's really important. If it was swapped around, I'd be absolutely delighted to go and work for those people, because they're kick-ass at what they're doing. They're brilliant, and so when you're working with people who are better than you or as good as you, or outshine, they're doing things that can outshine you, then that's going to stretch you. Okay, so hiring people, having people around you who are excellent, they're dynamic, they're intelligent, that's going to immediately raise your game. Okay, and you'll get inspiration from that. You'll get innovation from that. And I think really the only other person that can give you innovation or inspiration is yourself. You need to be introspective. People talk about sort of thinking time, or the best ideas coming out of the shower, or something like that, right? But if you contemplate on what you've seen during the day, or what you've thought about during the day, or you imagine ahead of you what you want something to look like, then more often than not, that idea can develop into something, far better than just that kernel of an idea as a moment of time. I'll give you an example. Whenever I used to organize a conference or an event, I'm a conference organizer, I would spend my time close my eyes, and I'd think about it for maybe 15 minutes. I'd imagine myself as a delegate walking into the conference room. I would imagine what the conference room door looked like, the handle looked like, what it sounded like when I opened the door, when I walked in, who was in the room, who turned their head to say hello to me, who did I recognize, how many chairs were there, what color were the chairs, what color was the carpet, what was the lighting like. Okay, every single aspect of that, you think about it, and you just imagine the full details of it, and you sort of float through that room, and you see what the stage is like, how it looks. No, that doesn't look very good. So then you sort of change you change it in your mind until you're really satisfied with the whole just pure imagination about what you want the end product to be like. I think I do this at the moment with the new office that we're going to move into. I've done it dozens of times, thinking about what it would be like to walk through that office, what the tables will look like, what the chairs will look like, to the very sort of finest detail, who's sitting in there. And I think if you have that approach, you take some time to really think about problems, or about opportunities, or about things, then that itself can help to develop a much more detailed solution or answer to a problem, which you could say is inspiration or innovation.
Beautiful, beautiful. Mike, I wonder, as we are getting close to the end of this conversation, I wonder, where do you see the future of event management coming? Like, is there any kind of trends you're excited about? Any technological innovations? Anything specific about the audience experience that you're excited about? What are some innovations, and where is the future going?
Live events, in-person events, are only going to get stronger. Okay, they're only going to get more sought after because people want to travel. They want to travel to interesting destinations, and they want to meet people in one go. Okay, they want to meet, people at one sort of event, at one show. But the quality and the variety of the events will probably change. So what I mean is the variety will probably diminish. Okay, and only the very best, the most quality ones will sort of emerge and sustain. And by quality, what we're seeing now is when you attend the event, it's a meaningful, measurable engagement or series of engagements that you make there. So by attending, you learn everything you need to learn, okay? Or you earn everything that you could possibly earn from it, or something like this, okay? There are three. A guy who founded IQPC, which is a large events company, Rick Warden, used to say to me, there are three things that people attend an event for, okay? And those three things were sort of, the idea that you're either going there because you have a sense of greed, okay? You're going there because it's because you've got something to make out of it. You've got something, you want to make some sort of money out of it. You want to go there and learn. If you don't go, your job's in trouble. That sort of thing. Okay, there's that opportunity side of it as well, where you can make, you can actually, by going to it, really sort of expand the business opportunities of your business. Okay, so it's fear, greed, and to shake the hand of greatness are the three reasons why they attend. So fear is, if I don't attend, my business could go bust. I could lose my job. I don't get an improvement in my, my salary or something like that. Okay. Greed is, if I attend, I'm going to make loads of money by going to it. I'm going to exploit this market. Okay. I'm going to do better than my competitors. The only other reason why people attend is to shake the hand of greatness. It's basically to go and, meet someone that they consider to be a hero of theirs, okay, or something like that, okay? Now, that's a very debased way of looking at events. But if you take that very essence of some human condition, then you have to be able to provide for that in the best way possible. So if people want to go there for business opportunity, I agree, okay, then you create an unbelievable series of one-to-one personalized meetings, okay, where they're meeting with everybody that they really need to meet, that they didn't know that they're going to meet. I mean, by meeting them, they make loads of money, they make loads of new contacts, they make loads of new leads, okay? If by, the fear, they need to go there because they need to install AI into their business before their competitors do, they don't know how to do it, let them go there and teach them that, and make it an unbelievable series of thought leadership, sessions. And if they're simply just there to shake the hand of greatness, then give them the access to the people that they want to meet.
Interesting, man. Yeah, I can imagine how you can reverse engineer an event so you can emphasize on covering those areas.
Yeah.
Final question, Mike. It's coming from a previous guest of the podcast. Fahad Alumaid was a guest of the podcast, and he sends a question specifically for you. Yeah, so his question is Riyadh taking over Dubai when it comes to mega tech events in the region?
Yeah, it is. I would say Dubai has the best event venue architecture at the moment. It's got Dubai World Trade Center, it's got Dubai Exhibitions Center. It's got far more space, but by the time Expo 2030 happens in Riyadh, I can tell you I've seen some of the designs of the architecture. They'll be the best in the world. The stuff that the Saudis are planning to build is world class. It's amazing. By that time, we'll have the space in Saudi. We'll have more events being able to deliver there. So yeah, Dubai is always going to be a really hot, brilliant place, for events in the region. But I am absolutely certain that Riyadh will be number one. Okay, over the next sort of several years, and it's already number one in terms of the property show that it does. It's already number one in terms of the tech show that it does, in terms of the cyber show that it does, in terms of the fintech show that it does. It's already number one. So it's already number one for the entertainment it's doing now with Middle Beast, and number one for sports. So everything's moving in that direction. So yeah, completely agree. If it's not already number one, it will soon be.
Love it. Mike, finally, I just want to give you space here. If you want to leave the audience with a message, or maybe you want to invite them to some of the upcoming events, the floor is yours.
Well, we have Leap in a few weeks' time. I suggest if you live in Saudi or you
February
live near.
9 to the 12th. That's right.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. February. So you can book online. It's free to attend. And this year the speaker faculty it's unreal. You can see it on onegiantleap.com. So I would advise people just to go to that website and take a look at what the speaker faculty is and come and see what's happening.
Beautiful. Mike, thank you so much for making the time, for being with us, for just sharing everything unfiltered. We would love to have you back at some point. Right now, we want to leave you so you can spend some time with your team, and we wish you an incredible next level Leap event. I guess it's always a challenge, right? Like when you've reached so high to get to the next level, but I'm sure you guys are gonna get there. And I want to thank everybody for being with us, listening live to the podcast or listening to the recording. Once again, 205 episodes. So make sure to subscribe to Productivity Mastery on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Mike. And see you once again at the next episode of Productivity Mastery.
Thanks, Stuart.